Hello, this is Richard Carafel from Agility PR Solutions. Welcome to PR Profiles, our video series and podcasts where we chat with experts in the PR and communications industry, because we think PR is the most formidable, dynamic, and rewarding field there is. And we want to introduce you to some of our favorite powerhouses in the industry. Today, we're speaking with Annie Scranton. She's the founder and president of Pace Public Relations in New York and host of the PR Pace podcast. Hi, Annie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Could you tell us just a little bit about yourself and Pace Public Relations? What's going on over there?
What isn't going on over here? It's a busy time right now in PR and everywhere, it feels like. But I started Pace 11 years ago. And before that, I worked as a TV news producer and print journalist for the first 8 years of my career. So I was primarily what's known as a booker, or an editorial producer. I worked for mostly cable news networks, but I also booked for Good Morning America and the Today Show. And my primary function was to find interesting stories that would make for compelling segment ideas, and then find and reach out to and book the guests who would go on and do the interview with my anchor. And so I did that for 8 years, and then transitioned into PR, wherein sort of just on the other side of the equation now, clients retain us to get them booked on TV as those talking heads, as those subject matter experts. But we focus on all aspects of traditional media. So we still do a ton in broadcast. We have multiple clients on national TV every single day. But we are very entrenched also in digital media, print media, radio, and podcasts as well.
Wow. All right. That is a lot going on, indeed. And that's a great background. Perfect segue for you to move into PR. So wonderful. All right. So this is a rapid fire interview. We're just going to get right into it. Let me ask you this first question. Is there an area of PR that you specialize in?
Well, definitely media relations, I think, would be like the central hub of it. So where we always aim to partner with our clients and to be there in a collaborative spirit with them. But where I personally work best is when a client has a really great story, a really great angle, a really great compelling hook to what they're doing. I take that, package it up, email it off to journalists, producers, hosts, reporters, and get what I hope will translate as meaningful media coverage. And we always have the intention that we hope it will raise our clients' overall brand awareness, but also sort of add to the legitimacy and credibility of their brand.
I see. That's great. Well, I can certainly see from your background how you were drawn to that. Any particular industries that you serve, or is it just across the board?
So we are agnostic when it comes to the type of clients. We have three main divisions. The first division is sort of the experts division, where people really come to us a lot because they primarily want to get booked on cable news. So think of political pundits, lawyers, medical doctors. Those are sort of the subject matter experts that we put as kind of doing the rounds on cable mostly. We have a B2B division. So within there, we have a couple of cybersecurity clients, various startups and tech companies, and we also represent several media properties such as Fast Company magazine, Inc. magazine, and Patch. And then we have a very robust lifestyle division also, where we have sort of a mixed bag of jewelry companies, authors, like different products, and CPG companies as well.
Wow, that definitely runs the gamut. Terrific. All right, thank you. All right, let me ask you this: what would you say is a go-to PR industry resource for you, whether it be a tool or a book or a course or something else that you just can't imagine doing your job without?
The news is mine, because I always, it's ingrained in me to watch the news early in the morning, to go into Google News, see what are the biggest stories of the day. I go to several major outlets every day. I subscribe to like 20 different newsletters, to get the news in the morning. And so for the type of PR that we do, without being an expert in the news and what is not only what is happening, but then having taking a holistic look at what's happening in the news, and then really trying to think and process, well, how can I insert my client into that conversation and give them sort of a compelling, interesting angle or voice as they approach the subject. So for me, without reading and consuming the news voraciously, I definitely wouldn't be able to do my job.
Yeah, I can hear that. And that is, boy, that's the best tip that you could offer PR pros is watch the news and read the news, most certainly. All right, thank you. Any other honorable mentions in the tool category that you would throw out there?
I really live on LinkedIn and Twitter. And so to me, just, I don't have much of an attention span like most people anymore. So being able to get like a quick feed and like, okay, this is trending, this is happening, like just it gives me ideas quickly. And then I can sort of pick and choose. Do I want to read more? Do I want to assign it to somebody to look into more? So I would say just it's so easy. You could be on your phone just scrolling, but you might get an idea, for a client.
That's terrific. Wonderful. Great advice. Okay. All right, Annie, what would you say is the biggest mistake that a PR pro can make?
There's many, I would say. So the biggest probably would be to over promise and under deliver. In PR, there are absolutely no guarantees. And we always try to make that very explicitly clear to prospective clients that I am pitching real journalists who work at legitimate, credible news institutions. I don't control what they will find interesting or what they want to write about or what their editor will assign them as a story. But the way I put it to prospective clients is that without hiring us or another agency, your chances of breaking in are so slim because you really need to work with somebody who not only has the connections within those media outlets and with those reporters, but somebody who also understands how to tell your story in a not overly promotional way. Because otherwise it's an advertisement, it's commercial, it's sponsored content. So I would say that setting the stage very early on with realistic expectations. If you don't do that, it's very hard to recover from that.
Right. That's great advice. Yeah. Thank you. And I do agree. Overpromising is the quickest way to end up on the blackball list with the media, for sure. All right. Thank you, Annie. So, what is a common myth about PR that you'd like to debunk?
I think a common myth is that, we're all sort of, vapid or conjuring up Samantha from Sex and the City sort of imagery of what publicists do. And I think unfortunately, there is a myth or a misconception, even amongst C-suite executives, that the PR, their comms team are not quite as important as some of the other C-suite level executives. And that's really just the worst possible take you could have within an organization or within a client, because if there is a crisis or a moment that needs to be handled delicately, if you don't loop in your comms team or your PR agency into those conversations, things can really go south very, very quickly. So I think the myth would be that, we're not as important as we really are, but the fact is that we're super important because we're the ones that are helping to control the narrative that's being put out to the public.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, devaluing your PR is a big short-sighted mistake that a lot of brands make. Wonderful. All right, thanks, Annie. All right, how about this? And I ask you this from a growth perspective, but what has been your biggest failure, and what were the lessons you learned?
Biggest failure. I mean, I don't know that I would consider it a failure, but when I was early on in my agency, I did not respect enough, like, sort of my position of expertise and authority in relation to speaking to a client, and giving them my recommendation. When you're in the service industry, you're there to serve, and there's the adage, oh, the client's always right. Well, that's true and not true. The client's always right insofar as you need to listen to them, take into account what they're saying, and try to work with them and value, of course, their opinion or where they want to go in a certain approach. However, if you don't push back in certain instances, it can just make you crazy. You could be this hamster on a wheel and things are just not working out. So in early days, I did not feel like I had enough of a confidence to sort of speak up and give my opinion. And it didn't, it wound up not serving me well, and it wound up not serving the clients well either. But, you know, certainly that's been a skill that I've worked on and I think have honed over the years.
There you go. All right, terrific. That's a terrific answer. Thank you. And that's a perfect segue to this next question, which would be, what advice would you give to students or people that are just starting out in PR?
Really make sure your writing skills are excellent. 100% of our pitching is over email. So if you are not able to construct a well thought out, well written, interesting, compelling email pitch, it's going to be really hard to do your job. So I would practice writing text, take extra courses. And then the other thing is that PR publicists, we really are, in my opinion, sort of need to be like experts on many, many different things, you know? And so without having just interests, you know, where you're consuming the media, but you're kind of up on trends, you know, and just like without having sort of that broad knowledge of sort of just like what's going on out there in the world, it's going to be hard for you when you get assigned a client, say that you have no expertise in or haven't heard anything. It's going to be that much harder for you to kind of jump in and give them the proper recommendations.
That's a terrific answer and some great advice. And I agree. PR people have to be masters of all trades
Yes.
These days. And so keeping your mind open and learning everything you can is a terrific approach. All right. Well, thank you so much, Annie. Now, how can people connect with you and with PACE Public Relations?
Sure. Our website is PACE, P-A-C-E, publicrelations.com. And you can find me, Annie Scranton, on all of the social media platforms.
All right. Terrific. All right, everybody, that's all the time we have. Again, we've been chatting with Annie Scranton. She's the founder and president of PACE Public Relations in New York and host of the PR PACE podcast. So thank you so much for joining us, Annie. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We hope you all enjoyed this episode of PR Profiles, brought to you by Agility PR Solutions. Agility is a leading media monitoring, media database, and outreach platform. You can use Agility to connect with journalists and get coverage, monitor media mentions, and measure your success. So head over to agilitypr.com today to get a personalized demo. So thanks for tuning in. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode.